My wife's late night at work excuse fell apart in one phone call. The lie died at exactly 10:43 p.m. One phone call. That's all it took to destroy 9 years of marriage. Not a private investigator. Not hidden cameras. Not months of secret surveillance. Just one simple phone call. At the time, I had no idea that dialing that number would completely change my life. I only wanted reassurance. I wanted proof that I was being paranoid. Instead, I got the truth. And the truth was far uglier than anything I had imagined. My name is Daniel, and until that night, I thought I had a good marriage. Not perfect, not some fairy tale romance, but good. Melissa and I had been together for 11 years, married for 9. We owned a beautiful house. We had savings. We took vacations. We rarely argued. From the outside, we looked like one of those couples who had everything figured out. The problem was that appearances can be very expensive lies. It started slowly. Melissa began staying late at work. At first, it happened once or twice a month. Then once a week. Then multiple times every week. There was always a reason. A client emergency. A financial report. An unexpected meeting. A deadline. An important presentation. Every excuse sounded reasonable. Every explanation made sense. And because I trusted my wife, I believed her. Trust is funny. It's not something you notice when it's there. You only notice it when it disappears. Over time, little things began bothering me. Melissa became protective of her phone. She smiled at messages she never shared. She started buying expensive clothes. She suddenly cared about makeup in ways she never had before. When we went out together, she seemed distracted. When I talked, she barely listened. When I suggested date nights, she found excuses. The emotional distance hurt more than anything else. I felt like I was losing her without understanding why. Still, I kept making excuses. Maybe she was stressed. Maybe work was overwhelming. Maybe I was imagining things. Then came the night that changed everything. Melissa left home around 6 o'clock. She claimed her boss had called an emergency evening meeting. She wore a black dress. Not business casual. Not office appropriate. A black dress that looked more suitable for a fancy restaurant. I joked about it. She laughed. You don't understand corporate culture. But something felt wrong. Hours later, while she supposedly worked late, I sat alone in our living room staring at the television. At exactly 10:43 p.m., I picked up my phone and called her office. I just wanted confirmation. I wanted someone to answer and tell me she was working. Instead, a security guard picked up. I asked for Melissa. There was a pause. Then he said something that made my blood run cold. Sir, nobody is here. What do you mean? The entire accounting department left hours ago. I felt sick. I explained that my wife had been working late. The guard sounded confused. Sir, nobody from accounting has been here since 6. The call ended. And with it, my marriage. When Melissa walked through the front door an hour later, she looked happy. Relaxed. Satisfied. Not exhausted from work. Not stressed from meetings. Happy. Long night, she said. I smiled. Yeah, I bet. She never realized that I knew. Not then. Not yet. And that was her biggest mistake. Because while she continued lying, I started preparing. Over the next month, I watched. I paid attention. I stopped ignoring the obvious. Soon I discovered his name. Ryan. Divorced. Charming. Confident. And apparently sleeping with my wife. The first time I saw them together, they were leaving a restaurant downtown. Melissa was laughing. The kind of laugh she hadn't given me in years. Ryan put his hand on her back. She leaned into him. They looked like a couple. A real couple. Not coworkers. Not friends. A couple. Watching them hurt. But strangely, it also brought clarity. The woman I loved no longer existed. At least not the version I thought I knew. That realization changed everything. I stopped trying to save the marriage. Instead, I focused on protecting myself. I hired an attorney. Then a financial advisor. I documented everything. Every suspicious transaction. Every lie. Every overnight business trip. I didn't confront her. I didn't yell. I didn't beg. I simply prepared. The funny thing about betrayal is that cheaters usually assume they're smarter than everyone else. Melissa certainly did. She thought she was controlling the situation. She thought she had all the power. What she didn't realize was that every day she spent lying gave me more time to get ready. One evening, while she showered, her phone lit up on the kitchen counter. I wasn't snooping. The message appeared on the screen. It was from Ryan. Can't wait for our weekend together. My stomach turned. Then another message appeared. Her reply? Me neither. That was it. The final nail in the coffin. The last shred of doubt disappeared. The next morning, I officially filed for divorce. But I didn't tell her. Not yet. Because I had a plan. A simple plan. I was going to let her think she was winning. For as long as possible. Weeks passed. Melissa became more careless. More confident. More arrogant. She assumed I was clueless. Meanwhile, I learned something interesting about Ryan. He wasn't successful. At least not financially. The expensive car was leased. The luxury lifestyle was financed with debt. The fancy image was mostly fake. Melissa thought she had upgraded. In reality, she was chasing an illusion. The irony was almost funny. For years she criticized me for being responsible. Too cautious. Too predictable. Too boring. Apparently boring was another word for financially stable. While Ryan played millionaire, I quietly built real wealth. The house was primarily mine before marriage. My investments were protected. My retirement accounts were secure. And thanks to excellent legal advice, most of what I had worked for remained protected. Melissa had no idea. Then came the moment everything exploded. One Saturday morning, Melissa announced she was leaving for another work conference. I smiled and wished her luck. She kissed my cheek. Then she left. 2 hours later, I received confirmation from my attorney. The divorce papers had been finalized. Everything was ready. The following Monday, Melissa returned home glowing. She looked happier than she'd looked in years. That happiness lasted approximately 12 minutes. Because when she walked into the kitchen, she found an envelope sitting on the counter. Her name was written on the front. I watched her open it. I watched her smile disappear. I watched confusion become panic. Then panic become fear. What is this? She whispered. You should read it. Her hands trembled. The divorce papers slid onto the counter. For several seconds, she couldn't speak. Then came the performance. The tears. The shock. The outrage. Daniel, what is happening? I stared at her. For the first time in months, I felt absolutely nothing. No more lies, Melissa. Her face turned pale. I don't understand. I laughed. Actually laughed. Because after months of deception, she still thought I was stupid. You haven't worked late in months. Silence. You weren't at the office. Silence. You've been seeing Ryan. More silence. The truth finally cornered her. And suddenly she looked terrified. The mask had fallen. She knew the game was over. For nearly an hour she tried everything. Denial. Excuses. Blame. Crying. Begging. Promises. Nothing worked. Because once trust dies, words become worthless. Then she asked the question every cheater eventually asks. Can we fix this? I looked at her carefully. The woman who had lied to my face hundreds of times. The woman who betrayed 11 years together. The woman who thought she'd never get caught. No. That single word shattered her. But the story wasn't over. Not even close. Because reality was about to catch up with both her and Ryan. Over the following weeks, Melissa moved out. Ryan immediately stepped into the role of boyfriend. Everything seemed perfect. For about a month. Then cracks appeared. Big cracks. Ryan's financial problems became impossible to hide. The luxury lifestyle disappeared. Debt collectors started calling. Credit cards were maxed out. Bills piled up. The image he'd carefully created began collapsing. Melissa was shocked. Apparently, she had expected a wealthy, successful man. Instead, she found someone drowning in debt. The relationship quickly became arguments replaced romance. Stress replaced excitement. Reality replaced fantasy. And reality wasn't nearly as attractive. Then came the final twist. Ryan lost his job. Not because of me. Not because of revenge. Because of his own decisions. Poor performance. Missed targets. Bad management. Within weeks, he was unemployed. The man Melissa had risked everything for suddenly couldn't provide the life she imagined. 6 months after our divorce, I received a phone call. It was Melissa. I almost didn't answer. Almost. When I picked up, her voice sounded different. Smaller. Defeated. She asked how I was doing. I told her the truth. Great. Because I was. After the divorce, I focused on myself. I traveled. Spent time with friends. Started hobbies I'd ignored. Invested in my health. For the first time in years, I felt free. Melissa listened quietly. Then she asked the question I expected. Do you ever miss me? I looked out the window for a long moment. No. The silence that followed was painful. Finally, she admitted something. Ryan had left. The relationship failed. The fantasy ended. Everything she traded our marriage for had collapsed. And now she was alone. Part of me felt sorry for her, but only a very small part. Because actions have consequences. Choices matter. And every decision eventually produces a result. Melissa chose excitement over loyalty. Fantasy over reality. Temporary thrills over permanent trust. The cost was everything. Before ending the call, she said something I'll never forget. I made the biggest mistake of my life. Maybe she did. Maybe she didn't. That wasn't my problem anymore. I wished her well. Then I hung up. A year later, I met someone new. Someone honest. Someone kind. Someone who understood that trust is valuable. The relationship developed slowly. Naturally. Without secrets. Without lies. Without games. One evening, while sitting on my back patio watching the sunset, I thought about everything that had happened. The betrayal. The anger. The revenge. The divorce. The recovery. And I realized something important. The best revenge isn't destruction. It isn't humiliation. It isn't making someone suffer. The best revenge is building a life so good that the people who hurt you become irrelevant. Melissa spent months believing she was winning. She thought she was smarter. She thought she had control. She thought she could have everything. In the end, she lost the husband who loved her, the stability she depended on, and the fantasy she chased. Meanwhile, I gained something far more valuable. Peace. And that's how one phone call at 10:43 p.m. destroyed my marriage. And ultimately gave me a better life than the one I lost.